Stick to baking, Leo had said, folding his arms over the mahogany conference table as if daring me to disagree. His tone was that familiar mixture of condescension and false concern, like he was warning a child away from a hot stove. I smiled politely, keeping my hands clasped in front of me. Across the table, Marissa tapped her pen against her notepad, eyes flicking between Leo and me. The rest of the room, 5 venture capitalists in tailored suits, leaned in, eyebrows raised, waiting for me to cave. Stick to baking, I repeated, tilting my head. My custom cookie assortment sat on the table, macarons in jewel tones, miniature bundt cakes, shimmering with glaze, buttery shortbread stamped with my logo. You're suggesting I shouldn't be running Sugar and Scribe? I let the question hang, the tastiest bite of my argument still on the platter. Leo barked a laugh. Your cupcakes are cute. But this, he waved at my pitch deck, a content management platform for niche publishers. That's not your wheelhouse. You're a baker. He turned to the investors. I love Riley's pastries, but I wouldn't bet my money on their code. A hush fell. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, but I refused to let it show. Drawing a breath, I picked up a raspberry macaron and inhaled its delicate almond fragrance. I taught myself to code because I wanted to share my recipes online. Interactive tutorials, downloadable templates, community forums, that evolved into Sugar and Scribe's core product. I punctuated each point with a sip of lavender-infused lemonade from the matching glassware. I'm not just a baker, I'm a builder. Marissa's pen stilled. Some of the investors inched back, re-evaluating their notes. But Leo only leaned forward. The market's saturated. You'll get out-competed by larger CMS providers. You'll end up back here hawking cupcakes in your apron. I set the macaron down and stood. Everyone flinched as I brushed past my chair. Thank you for your feedback, I said quietly. I'll be sure to keep baking in mind. I walked out before I could add the parting shot. 6 months later, Sugar and Scribe's users would generate over 100,000 recipe-driven blog posts, and my cupcakes would still be selling out at farmers markets. 3 years later, my phone pinged at 7:45 on a Monday morning. Sleep fogged my brain, but the sender name jolted me fully awake, Gravity Apps. My heart thumped once, then settled into a steady rhythm. Gravity Apps, Leo and Marissa's glitzy startup that had launched with so much promise. My finger hovered over the notification. I scrolled through my calendar, sugar shipments to the local cafe at 9, the weekly recipe livestream at 11, a tasting event at 2. My life revolved around baking, and I loved every sugar-dusted second of it, yet something drew me to open the message. Gravity Apps Catering Inquiry. We'd like to hire Sugar and Scribe to cater the official launch of Gravity Apps next Friday at the Junction Loft. We need canapés, mini desserts, and signature cocktails. Budget $8,000. Let us know if you're available. Marissa, I tapped into the thread and saw Leo's follow-up. We really want to work with you, Riley. Your food is amazing, and we want the event to show we support local artisans. I sat up, my mind whirled. Leo and Marissa, the same duo who'd told me to stick to baking, were now begging me to bring my pastries to their launch. The irony made me smile. I typed back, "Hi Marissa, thanks for thinking of us. We'd be honored to cater your launch. I'll send a detailed proposal by tomorrow." Riley, then I closed my laptop with a decisive snap and texted my operations manager, Dana, Gravity Apps launch catering, $8K budget. Can we do it? Shortly after, Dana replied, absolutely. Let me draft the menu and logistics. That afternoon, I stood in the back of my tiny bakery, which I'd grown into a bustling cafe and catering hub, surrounded by rising dough, chattering ovens, and the familiar hum of mixers. My head chef, Marcus, waved a whisk at me. Gravity Apps, he asked, flour dusting his hair. That's the tech company, right? The one that just got acquired? I nodded. They're launching next week. They want canapés, desserts, cocktails. Big event. Dry excitement sparkled in my chest. Marcus hoisted a tray of eclair shells. So revenge service? I laughed. Let's call it Karma Cuisine. I tapped my chin. I want the menu to nod at their gravity theme. Orbit-inspired bites, microgravity mousse cups, celestial cocktails. He grinned. I like where your head's at. He turned and barked out orders to the prep cooks. By Friday, the proposal, complete with hand-lettered menu mock-ups, landed in Marissa's inbox. She replied within hours, "Love it, let's move forward." Leo forwarded the signed contract minutes later. Suddenly, my bottom line was $8,000 richer. The day before the launch, I visited the Junction Loft, a cavernous warehouse space with exposed brick, Edison bulbs, and high ceilings. I paced among the scaffolding and empty tables, imagination racing faster than the forklifts bumping in the distance. Dana tugged on my sleeve. They want an on-site tasting at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Full dress rehearsal, serve everything exactly as on the big night. They'll bring the AV crew, lighting demo, the whole shebang. I nodded. Good, we'll treat it like a show. I visualized row after row of pastry platters, servers in crisp aprons reciting item descriptions, guests snapping photos of the sugar-glazed donuts, shaped like little satellites. A text buzzed. Your event orders just came in, 200 people. My stomach fluttered. This was the biggest catering job I'd ever booked, twice the size of my cafe's seating capacity. But with careful planning, extra staffing, and Marcus's genius, we'd pull it off. I spent the next 24 hours orchestrating the operation, ordering last-minute provisions from specialty suppliers, scheduling delivery vans, arranging for a temporista team to handle the coffee station. My nights were sleepless, my days blurred in a whirlwind of checklists and tasting spoons. At 4:45 p.m. on Saturday, I stood in the Junction Loft's back hallway, dressed in my sugar and scribe chef's coat. The tasting began in 15 minutes. Through the crack in the door, I saw a half-dozen Gravity Apps staff in logo tees milling around, clutching clipboards. Marissa stood at the center, scanning the empty tables with an appraised eye. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, and her posture was that poised mix of startup swagger and social anxiety. I stepped forward, cleared my throat. Ready? I asked. Voice low. She turned, relief flooding her features. This is it. Thanks for doing this. She looked at me like she hadn't expected me to show. Though the contract said otherwise, I let her off the hook. Just do your demos. I'll handle the cuisine. She nodded and walked to the head table. I slipped inside and touched the first platter of Orbit canapés, tiny brioche rounds, topped with beet and turmeric-dyed goat cheese, and a single microgreen. Beside them sat the Gravity Devils, deviled eggs sprinkled with edible glitter. Servers filed in behind me, placing trays with choreographed precision. The tinkling of cocktail glasses came from the bar station, where my assistant Lee shook silver shakers filled with gin-based Constellation cocktails, violet-hued drinks garnished with rosemary sprigs. I exhaled, stepping back. Everything looked perfect. But then the lights flickered. A hush fell as the Edison bulbs dimmed. Marissa's CTO, a lanky man named Ahmed, jabbed at a tablet. Power's out, he announced. Backup generators offline. Murphy's Law struck with a vengeance. No lights meant no audio visuals, no spotlight on the stage where Marissa was to demo the app. The clipboard-wielding staffers looked at each other in panic. I stepped forward. Let's not let a blackout spoil this. I called to the nearest server. Grab those battery-operated fairy lights from the storeroom, line the tables. Then to Lee, switch the bar to LED-up lights. We need atmospheric glow. Lee nodded and dashed off. My head chef Marcus found me in the chaos. We've got a problem? He asked, eyes wide. Generators down, I said. Lights are out, but the food can't wait. I scanned the room, shadowed shapes of guests milling in the lobby below. We turn this into an intimate tasting. Candles on every table? Let's do flaming dessert stands for the eclipse cakes. I pointed past the stage. And I want every canapé tray to double as a candle holder. We're going celestial. He grinned. On it. He barked orders while I grabbed tea light holders and rigged them to the dessert trays, igniting each as we placed it. Within minutes, the darkened loft glowed with hundreds of tiny flames. Marissa took the makeshift stage, shrouded in candlelight, and began her presentation. It seems gravity's pull is stronger than us tonight, she joked, voice amplified by a handheld mic. But sometimes, in darkness, you see the stars better. She pressed her phone to the room's audio jack, and soft music floated through battery-powered speakers. Guests leaned in, captivated. The blackout had become an unexpected showstopper. My desserts caught flickering light, Orbit canapés glowed like miniature moons, Constellation cocktails shimmered in candlelit halos, and the centerpiece sphere of choux stood on a rotating cake stand, its caramel sheen gleaming. I watched from the back, heart pounding. They'd hired me to feed their egos. Instead, I'd turned their meltdown into magic. Marissa's voice rang out, "If our app launch tonight is anything like this event, adapting under pressure, then we're going to disrupt the industry. Thank you, Sugar and Scribe." She paused, scanning the room, and her eyes met mine. "And thank you, Riley." I tucked my hands into my coat pockets and allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Tomorrow they would announce their funding round. Everyone expected a glamorous, high-tech spectacle. Instead, they'd get candied stars and a story no investor could forget. I stepped away from the glow, already planning how to transform this disaster into their most talked-about launch ever. Because sticking to baking wasn't just my strength, it was my superpower. By sunrise the morning after the blackout gala, my phone was already buzzing. I squinted at the screen, 80 missed calls, 300 emails, and a dozen social tags. Everyone from local bloggers to national outlets wanted to talk about the bakery that saved a tech launch. I leaned back against the cool tile of my kitchen, letting the news cycle wash over me like a sugar-spun tide. "Did we actually break the internet?" Marcus asked, emerging with a platter of leftover Orbit canapés. I laughed, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Looks that way." I tapped through headlines. Gravity apps launch far better than their code. How Riley's Baker's moonlit menu became the main event, from cupcakes to candlelight. The night tech went dark. My heart swelled. Each story was a glowing review of Sugar and Scribe's ingenuity. But buried in the avalanche of praise was a different headline. Gravity App's post-launch funding fails to materialize. A pit opened in my stomach. I clicked it. Investors spooked by market volatility had passed. The Series A term sheet lay unsigned. Instead of a triumphant ascent, Gravity Apps was in free fall. At precisely 9:02 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A text from Marissa. "Marissa, Riley, can you call me? It's urgent." I closed the laptop, swallowed a handful of flour-dusted almonds, and dialed. "Riley," she said, voice tight. "We didn't get the funding." I bit back a sympathetic, "I'm sorry," and folded my arms. "What happens now?" Her breath hitched. "We have a press conference in 2 days to announce a strategic pivot. We need you to cater it. Smaller scale, cocktail style. We'll pay double what we agreed." There was a tremor in her voice, equal parts desperation and hope. I paused. This was my moment of choice. Help the team who'd once sneered at my hobby, or step back and let them face the fallout alone. The baker in me believed in second chances. The entrepreneur recognized a profitable opportunity. "Send me the details," I said, keeping my tone measured. "I'll review and get back to you by noon." 2 hours later, I convened my leadership team in the cafe's back office. Sunlight slanted through the windows, illuminating flower motes in the air. "We've been approached again," I began. "Gravity Apps, now Gravitas Solutions, wants us for a pivot press event. Budget's up, timelines tight." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Their startup failed, and they want to celebrate a pivot? That's awkward." Priya tapped her notepad. "But the extra budget means more creative freedom. We could design a phoenix from the ashes menu. Smoky charcoal buns, fiery chili chocolate truffles." Marcus chimed in, grinning, "Sympathy pastries, shaped like little phoenix eggs. We could dust them with edible gold." I smiled, excitement fluttering. "I like it. But first terms. Full deposit up front, cancellation fee built in, and a clear headcount. No just add more people at the last minute." They nodded. "Standard," Sarah said. "We protect ourselves, they get their event." I drafted the contract in 30 minutes and sent it off. By 2 p.m., Marissa had signed and wired the deposit. The Pivot press conference was on, 2 days away. That afternoon, I toured the conference venue, a mid-size auditorium with gray carpets and stark white walls. It had the buzz of post-construction, fresh paint, new carpet smell, and that eerie silence of empty hallways. Marissa met me at the door, heels clicking. Her shoulders were gaunter, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "Thank you," she said. "We need us to look unstoppable." I tapped the contract in my hand. "Let's make them believe it." In the green room, I sketched the menu on a whiteboard. Ember buns, mini brioche infused with smoked paprika, topped with fiery chili ganache phoenix eggs, raspberry lemon shoe puffs with gold-dusted shells, ash and ember cocktails, bourbon activated charcoal, rosemary smoke rebirth rolls. Matcha-infused cinnamon rolls drizzled in pink rose icing, Priya added. We'll set up a smoke machine behind the stage for ambiance. When you introduce the pivot, it'll literally rise from the ashes. Marissa's lips curved. Perfect. The night before the conference, chaos reigned in my kitchen. 20 staff members chopped, piped, and whisked beneath hanging racks of copper pans. My playlist of 90s R&B provided a rhythmic backdrop. I paced, checking my watch. In under 12 hours, 250 VIPs, investors, journalists, and a few skeptical ex-employees would descend. This time, there would be no blackout to save us. Everything had to be flawless. At midnight, Marcus tugged his chef's coat off. Stock stashed, text your ride for tomorrow, he said. Exhausted but exhilarated, I punched out, grabbed my bag, and headed home to rest. At 8 a.m. sharp, I arrived at the auditorium. Stands of ember buns already lined the buffet table. 2 rows of ash and ember cocktails glimmered in low amber lighting. Nearby, phoenix eggs lay nestled in china spoons like embryonic curiosities. The Gravitas team buzzed around, mic checks and speech run-throughs in progress. Marissa approached, blazer buttoned, voice calm. Thank you, Riley. This means the world, literally. I nodded. Just focus on your script. Leave the fire to me. I winked and slipped away to supervise final touches. At 10 a.m., the doors opened. Journalists in crisp suits filtered in, cameras at the ready. I watched from the back as they sampled ember buns. One reporter murmured, "Is that smoked paprika?" Bold move. Another sipped the charcoal cocktail and whispered, "It tastes like campfire cheek." I allowed myself a quiet smile. When Marissa stepped on stage, the lights dimmed. A spotlight tracked her as she began. Today marks a new chapter for Gravitas Solutions, a transformation born from lessons learned. Like a phoenix, we rise stronger from our own ashes. At her cue, the smoke machine roared to life, tendrils curling around the banner behind her. Cameras flashed, and for a moment you could almost believe this was a rousing comeback. After her speech, investors mingled with guests at the buffet. I circulated with Marcus, listening in. I appreciate their candor, one angel investor told a colleague. Fail early, fail fast, it's the mantra. This is a smart rebrand. Tech blogger snapped photos of phoenix eggs. This is the best metaphorical pastry I've ever tasted, she tweeted in real time. I leaned over to Priya. They're buying it, she grinned, and buying the champagne to wash it down. The press conference wrapped by noon. The Gravitas team exhaled collectively, congratulating one another. Marissa found me near the exit. You saved us again, she said softly. I don't know how to thank you. I sighed, feeling the weight of 2 intense nights. You don't need to thank me, you just need to pay what's due. And remember, no more condescension. She hesitated, then offered a small box. For you, inside lay a single phoenix egg, gilded in gold leaf, wrapped in a black velvet pouch. Moved, I accepted. I'll treasure it. I paused, but next time you need a miracle, just call me before you fail. She laughed, relieved. Deal. A week later, Gravitas Solutions announced a modest $2 million bridge round, a far cry from their original series, A Dreams, but enough to keep a lean team afloat. Headlines praised their resilience. Startups don't die, they pivot. Photographs of Riley's pastries peppered the story. Meanwhile, Sugar and Scribe's calendar exploded with new catering inquiries. Another tech event, a fashion launch, a high-profile political fundraiser. My small team expanded overnight from 20 to 27 staff. I hired 2 more pastry chefs and a part-time event coordinator. One afternoon, I received an email that made me pause. Subject, speaking invitation from TEDx City Lights. Hi Riley, we'd love for you to share your story. How baking taught me to build a business, at our conference next month. TEDx organizer, I stared at the screen. Baking had always been my safe haven, and my springboard. The thought of speaking on a stage filled me with equal parts terror and thrill. I typed back, count me in. On the night of the TEDx talk, the auditorium hummed with expectation. I stepped onto the red circle, heart pounding, hands slightly clammy. The audience was a sea of faces, some familiar from Gravity events, most strangers. I took a deep breath. They once told me to stick to baking. A ripple of recognition passed through the crowd. I smiled. But every cupcake I've ever made carried a question. What else could I build? I wove my journey, late-night code sessions, pitch rejections, lunar-lit catering salvages, into a narrative of resilience and creativity. I held up a phoenix egg. Sometimes the sweetest victories come from the ashes of failure. Questions followed. How do you manage risk? When do you know it's time to pivot? What's next for Sugar and Scribe? I answered with candor. Always protect your passion with structures that let you learn fast. Pivot when market feedback demands it. And ensure your kitchen, literal or metaphorical, is staffed by people who believe in your vision. At the end, the audience rose in applause. I realized the story wasn't just about me. It was about anyone daring to mix ingredients of flour, code, or ambition, and bake something unexpected. Back in my bakery the following morning, I found a frame on my desk, the Phoenix egg from Marissa, now cracked open to reveal a tiny USB drive inside. Etched on the side, Sugar and Scribe Ex Gravitas, Partnership Archive. Inside was a video montage behind the scenes of the Blackout launch, the Pivot press conference, interviews with grateful founders, a digital scrapbook of collaboration and reinvention. I smiled and tucked the drive into my apron pocket. Next to it, a fresh set of order tickets awaited weddings, corporate retreats, and yes, another tech event. My life had become a tapestry of unexpected calls and new horizons. I poured myself a cup of coffee, watching the morning light play across the mixing bowls. The ovens hummed awake. In that quiet moment, I realized the sweetest truth. They'd told me to stick to baking, but I'd used baking to build bridges, to innovation, to leadership, to community. And in doing so, I'd shown that a single spark, like a candle in the dark, can illuminate possibilities nobody saw coming.